2024 was quite the year. Paris hosted the Summer Olympics. Donald Trump got re-elected in the United States. Up here in Canada, Justin Trudeau's collapse began, and the Toronto Maple Leafs won the Stanley Cup. Just kidding. All right, all jokes aside, today we're going to be talking about the 2024 market here in the Halifax-Dartmouth region, recapping the entire year, letting you know what happened here in this market. And then at the end of this video, I'm going to be predicting what to expect in the 2025 market. So make sure you stay tuned until the very end. All right, welcome back to my channel. My name is Greg Pierce. I am a local real estate agent and investor here in the Halifax area of Nova Scotia on the east coast of Canada. And if you are looking to get tons of information about real estate in and around this area, please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and hit that notification icon so you can be informed anytime I release new content. And more importantly, if you're looking to get a one-on-one chat and have some specific questions that you would like to ask, or just get a general understanding of the real estate market here, please book a one-on-one call here through my Calendly link in the description below. And I'm happy to have a virtual phone call, or meet you for a coffee. All right, so let's jump right into it. 2024 was a busy year in the real estate market here on the east coast of Canada. But it's important to put that into context, which we're going to be diving into a little bit later on. So we had a total of 5,188 total sales, which was an increase of 8.4% from 2023. But bear in mind, 2023 was one of the lowest volume measures we've had in the last 10 years in this region. So that year-over-year data is a little bit skewed by a low 2023. The average sale price hit $575,332, which is up by 4.7% from 2023. And homes were sitting on the market for an average of 33 days, which is 5 days longer than 2023. But here is the catch. Inventory stayed low for the entirety of 2024. For the most part, we hovered between 2 and 2.5 months of inventory, which is a strong seller's market. Anything that is below 4 months of inventory is a seller's market, and being between 2 and 2.5 months of inventory indicates a very strong seller's market. Now, 2024 wasn't just about stats and sales and prices. It's really about some of the major headlines that we witnessed here in 2024. So let's break some of those down now. So the major storyline was that the Bank of Canada dropped the overnight interest rate 175 basis points, or 1.75% over the course of 2024. Now, interest rates have been climbing up and dropping over the last couple of years, so it's been very unpredictable. And I do think there's still going to be a little bit of unpredictability as we move into 2025. And I'll talk more about that at the end of the video when I'm breaking down my prediction. Now, if you're on the renting side, this is important to you, or if you're an investor, the rent cap here that was put in place by the PC government originally was at 2%, meaning you could only increase year over year one time 2% on the rent. So now that's been increased to 5%, and that was further extended until the end of 2027. So now 5% is put in place to protect existing tenants. However, if you are on a fixed term lease and it is a new tenant moving into that unit, market rent is applicable, and the landlord is able to charge whatever they see fit for that unit, as long as someone is willing to pay that price. Another major storyline was that the accelerator fund put in place by the federal government was passed and has made a ton of zoning changes here in HRM. Many of those have already started to take effect, but it still is a big lag measure, particularly in the more residential areas where, we're looking at lots that can potentially be converted into 4 units in typical suburban neighborhoods. Which we haven't really seen the effect of that yet. However, I do expect that to be a bit more of a trend starting in 2025 as people start to see that as not only a feasible investment, but something that makes sense for them in the long run. And lastly, there were some major changes to mostly mortgage regulations, but also some down payment assistance programs here. So in Nova Scotia, our down payment assistance program increased the maximum purchase price. So that certainly helped kind of continue on and line up and correlate with the rising housing market. And then federally, we were introduced to 30-year amortization periods, which is allowing first-time home buyers and anyone that's buying new construction to be able to extend the life of their amortization, which means lower monthly mortgage payments. We also saw new default insurance limits, which means that you can put a smaller down payment on properties up to $1.5 million. Again, that's not going to impact here locally as much as, markets like Vancouver, Toronto, even in Alberta. And finally, they got rid of the stress tests for mortgage renewals. This is a really big piece because default mortgages was becoming a big concern as a lot of people were buying at the early stages of COVID back in 2020, and a lot of those mortgages are up for renewal in 2025 because of a typical 5-year fixed mortgage. And the issue with that is that people wouldn't qualify under the new stress test regulations, and they would have to go to a different lender or potentially default on their mortgage. They're able to continue on and not have to re-qualify with their lender, which is a huge change and hopefully will limit some of the foreclosures and mortgage defaults that were somewhat anticipated leading up to this point. Now, I think it's safe to say that real estate has become very polarizing over the last few years, and that was no different in 2024. You know, big topics like housing affordability, housing as a human right, the whole notion of the institution versus private ownership when it comes to being a landlord and owning investment properties. Even my role as a realtor is often scrutinized and think it's unnecessary and that we influence the market too heavily. So this has always been a hot topic, but particularly over the last few years, this has become very, very prevalent. And another big topic is the buying versus renting, whether it still makes sense to buy real estate even with all of these increasing prices. Is it a good investment? Are we going to see a bubble? Is it going to come crashing down? These are all things that I get asked on a fairly regular basis. And it's certainly from credible sources and intelligent people. But these are the major concerns that we're starting to see as housing has really become a hot topic here in Nova Scotia and really across the country. So to put that into perspective, since 1980, there's only been 1 year where the average home price has actually decreased, and that was in 1995. To put that further into perspective, the average growth over that time period has been 5.7%. So this last year's growth of 4.7% is actually below standard, and real estate over the long term has always been talked about this great investment, but these are the stats to support it. So if you are thinking about buying, but you're a little bit hesitant or you're worried about the market tapping out, I'm going to talk about my prediction for 2025 later on in this video, but rest assured that I do see this market continuing to rise. By how much, that's to be foreseen, but this is absolutely a strong investment, and you do not grow your equity by renting. So this is an important differentiating factor when you're looking at whether or not to buy real estate. And I can tell you that historically, real estate in this region has gone up for the exception of 1 year back in 1995 since 1980. All right, now let's fast forward to 2025. We know Donald Trump is taking office on January 20th. Justin Trudeau has now submitted his resignation and he will be stepping down as Prime Minister. And I guarantee you the Toronto Maple Leafs will not be winning the Stanley Cup again this year. But more importantly, on the real estate side of things, it's important to look at a few different factors when I break down what my predictions are. I don't want to pull these numbers out of thin air or make you believe that it's just another realtor predicting that the market is going to go up and it's a great time to buy, it's a great time to sell, it's always a great time to do a deal with me. But in reality, it is important to get the stats, but also know where they're coming from. All right, so before we get into where I think the sale prices will finish this time next year, I want to factor in 3 main points of why I think it's going to head in this direction. Number one, 2023 and 2024 were 2 of the slowest years over the last 10 years in terms of sales volume, meaning fewer homes were transacting than the average, and they were the second and third lowest volume over the last 10 years respectively. So I do expect that there's going to be a little bit of catch up, and from my own personal experience and client database, there's been a lot of people that have been waiting on the sidelines, whether it's for home prices to change or interest rates to change or potentially their careers and their incomes and all these different factors to be influenced. And they've really been waiting since about 2022. And now they're kind of starting to build up a little bit. There's becoming kind of this floodgate scenario where I do expect some of that backlog to start to feed into 2025 and 2026. And I do think that that starts this year. So I do expect there to be at least 5,500 sales, which is still below what we typically see. However, I do expect there to be an increase. Number 2 is I know immigration has been a very hot topic, particularly of the current Liberal government, although Justin Trudeau will be stepping down. There will be a reduction, I believe, in the volume and the rate at which immigration is coming into our country. However, what I think is happening is that there's a bit of a lag effect in terms of these immigrants coming into our country and being able to buy real estate right away. I think they're getting settled in, and I do think there's a lag effect of maybe 12 to 18 months. So we have seen a huge volume, not only in the country, but here locally in our province of Nova Scotia, and particularly in Halifax, where there has been a large increase in our population. However, those people haven't been moving into our country or our province and immediately buying up real estate. I expect that to now start to roll into this year, as they were maybe being moved into the country in 2023, 2024, and now they're ready to buy a home here. And my final point is around some of the government changes. 30-year amortizations. Locally, our down payment assistance program has increased. There's tons of initiatives out there right now that are really helping buyers get their foot in the door. And some of these are very fresh. The 30-year AM got implemented December 15th of last year. So this is going to be a huge leverage factor for 2025. So based on those three factors, I do expect that our market is going to appreciate by 5 to 7% in 2025. That's going to bring our average home price either to $604,000 or up to $615,000, depending on what we see there. Now, obviously, that's not going to be an exact science. I was minutely off the mark last year, but I do expect strong growth to still happen here. And yes, I believe it's still a strong market. The only thing that's potentially holding back some of the buyers and to see this really take off is that the sentiment and the buyer confidence still isn't overly high because of our current government and what's happening with interest rates. All right, folks, there you have it. That is my 2024 recap and 2025 prediction on what is going to happen this year. I hope you found this video helpful. If you'd like some more information, again, please click on the link down in the description and book a one-on-one meeting with myself, whether you want to do that virtually or in person. And if you like this video, please like it, hit the subscribe button and tap that notification icon. It truly helps out my channel as I love making this content and it would really support the cause. Thank you so much. And as always, I will see you on the next one.